Good evening, everybody. Pretty much just squeaked in within that normal hour. I really wish I could get back to 7 o'clock starts. Um, but we're here. I'm really looking forward to House of Light tonight. We had some success with something that I was trying for the Lighthouse Institute to try and get a few more members faster than I might have otherwise. And okay, there we go. But one of the things that's kind of funny about the House of Light, basically the introduction of salons, is that while it would be fair to say that you could level up your skills to a very high level in the base game, even if you were to just sort of play normally and do a conventional ending. The salons have really accelerated the rate at which you can acquire lessons. And so every time I do a salon, it's actually quite challenging now to get the levels in a timely fashion, simply because my lowest skills, not including the languages, are 7. And excuse me. That's effectively, there's only 2 sets of skills that I can level up now, the 7s and 8s. And of course the second, or the level 2 is the level 7 and level 8 are actually not that easy in some cases to go all the way with. Sorry, I'm babbling. But yeah, like essentially you need to come up with 7 or 8 memories, and the big difficulty comes in the form of something like resurgences and emergences, which has Grail and Moth, because it's not that Grail and Moth are impossible to get a hold of. They are, however, a little more challenging to get out of books than some of the others, and so what that means is that you need to take the time to, level everything up with the different, you need to do the apprentice and, scholar and keeper recipes. Those take, 90 seconds, 2 minutes in some cases. And if you have competing interests, so for instance, if I tried to level up, say, resurgences and emergences, and what would be a good example of another one? I don't remember which one of these has oh, okay, because there aren't as many. But a good example of this might be something like resurgences and emergences and weaving and knot working. Or alternatively, resurgences and emergences and something that's got Rose in it, Moth and Rose in particular. Is there a Moth and Rose? Pearl and Tide's Moon. Sky Stories is Sky. I don't actually think there's a Moth and Rose. But in any case, so when for certain memories, you can wind up in situations where you're sort of competing for the same memories. And again, that's fine. That sometimes just means that you need to do them over 1 or 2 days. But if the aim has been to try and get through the events as quickly as possible, there's a little bit of a challenge when it comes to sort of delivering on that initial promise. Anyways, we're going to level up this. We're going to do the Salon. We'll level up the skills as we can. We've got a full roster here in terms of elements of the soul. If I want to earn some money, I can. But the real aim here is just to have something ready for... we just really want to have something ready for the afternoon. Daymare will be done in 5.5 minutes, but we don't need the full day. So in this case, I'm actually just going to speed up to the afternoon. I'm actually trying to think why oh, hang on. So I was giving this to Ibn al-Adim. Okay. Just give it a little bit of time for the give it a bit of time for the day to go by. I'd forgotten that I was using the knot cake on this one, but the aim here was just partly to motivate me to do a bit more cooking, because I've just got this massive not backlog, but this massive sort of store of prepared foods. And I figured, here we go. I figured it wouldn't be a bad idea to just kind of get back to that point where I'm actually cooking things that I want, and maybe trying to push myself a little bit further in terms of some of the dishes. This might be something that I look up, because I'm not sure I have any indicators on how to get the last few that I haven't done yet. Anyways, the Hall of Voices. Here, the higher initiates of the threefold mysteries would meet to manage the affairs of the Black Dove and to resolve its disputes. Here they voted to blind and expel the chorates of the Thunderskin, who had trespassed in the inner chambers and spied on the mysteries. From that time on, the rites of the Thunderskin were not permitted on the isle, and the sacred drums fell silent. But the waves still beat in the bones of the rock, even now that slow pulse comes. We'll be hosting a salon in the Hall of Voices, an eccentric, or at least atmospheric, choice of venue for a salon. And finally, let's talk about who is coming and who will be, and what they'll be eating. So here we have Daymare, Gräfin Frederica Dagmar Sophia Teresa Helena Begina von Nagelsberg, if you prefer. She doesn't. D.I. Douglas Moore, Detective Illuminate of the Suppression Bureau, a stoic but weary fellow. His dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. Princess Kokil Amarajibi, artist, socialite, burglar, an unspeakably charming woman with a particular knack for getting adopted. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest, diplomat, gardener, a soft-voiced man with a very steady gaze. And Dr. Aaron Peel, exile, riddlemonger, Thunderskin devotee, I'd rather say confidant. Impeccably dressed, but always in dark clothing so the stains don't show. Dark the dressings, too, at his ankles and his wrists. I won't take a seat. It's kind of you to offer. It would be unkind of me to accept. Zarog, lovely to see you again. I do like those snowmen emotes, but lovely to see you. I hope you are well. Oh yes, and they will be enjoying leek soup, a milder taste than onion soup, but no less warming. Marinated roast beef, but since we have learnt from all vaporing fants to eat their agouts as well as to dance, we're fed up with nothing but vain complaisance. Oh, the roast beef of old England and old English roast beef. Egg croquettes, come for the crunch, stay for the nourishment. The Walls of Yeze, a frankly insensitive name that commemorates the inundation of that fabled city. And knot cake, according to the ancient pattern. Okay. Not how it's done. Should have paid attention to what I can do here. Right. So this one, I'm going to move up to the refectory. So I was trying to change it up a little bit in terms of locations, but I do still want the bonus interaction. Heaven's sake. So one of the things that I was, well, on the note of finding some of the food, as part of the promotional material for the game, I believe they did give a list of all of the things that you can prepare. So I seem to remember, I'm actually trying to remember if this was from this sheet or not, but I think there was something to the effect of agave. Uh, excuse me, and the tea, which I keep forgetting is a thing. Like, I never have any kind of sweetener or any kind of... I don't do anything to change my tea. I always have it on its own. So I should be trying... I mean, again, I've got no shortage here. Actually, you know what? Let's... No, we can worry about that later. Again, I can look up that... that promotional bit as well. I'm still trying to find out whether or not the game is intended for you to sort of discover those recipes on their own. I actually feel that that's one of the things that it doesn't... It does give you some good pointers, but it doesn't really complete the... it doesn't really complete the guidance for you. Like, I feel that there are some that you need to either get through experimentation or through somebody telling you. But I don't know. Like, it's this is one of the reasons why I am resistant to people sort of saying their approaches to things, because I don't always get an opportunity to sort of see how a game works on me. And I think it's a skill that's a good one to develop, which is to just sort of see, like, how did the game tell you to know that? Like, so good example. I think there's a really famous example that people use, which is the opening level of Mario. And sort of the fact that you have the idea of motion, of sort of bouncing on enemies, on, you know, getting power-ups, all of that sort of covered in the opening moments of the game. And I think there was a book that I was reading. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but there was a book that I was reading which sort of talked about what a bad thing it was that the remake... or one of the updated versions for one of Nintendo's modern consoles included an arrow indicating that you should walk forward. And I mean, it's probably a personal taste thing. I can imagine, I can see it sort of going one way or the other, to be honest, because It would be a little bit like evaluating the reason why I'm trying not to come down too hard on it is it's sort of like evaluating advertisements, from the 1950s and 60s by the standards of today. There's just a simply different set of expectations. Like, any commercial today, even a terrible one, would probably be considered, an extremely avant-garde short film by the standards of previous decades, and it's because we have sort of this visual grammar that we couldn't really rely on earlier, and this is one thing that always sort of bugs me. I see this so many times from people, and like, again, it's like gaming, right? People who are allegedly fans of something but spend their whole time complaining about it. Somebody was going on about, oh yeah, everything nowadays cut. I could not think of a less interesting opinion about, like, it's not that that's not unfair. Sorry, I should maybe cut back on the negatives a little bit. I can see how that would be a fair criticism. In some cases, and many cases, in fact, there is sort of unjustified cuts. And it's an effort to sort of kind of rip away someone's attention. You're competing with so many other forms of entertainment at any one time. But there are also excellent films which have lots of cutting and do it very effectively. So I think a really good example of this would be Mad Max Fury Road, which, has lots of edits, lots of cutting, and lots of post-processing on the film as well. And yet it doesn't feel disorienting. You always sort of have this clear idea of sort of space and where you are in the action. And so, I understand, like, I think George Miller's kind of got his reputation, and that's considered widely considered a very good movie. But the thing is that if it's someone who isn't a name, the same techniques could be used, and I can easily see someone criticizing it as just cut, cut, cut. I also feel a little more comfortable saying this because I've been, going through David Lynch's movies again and noting how few of them received any favorable criticism. And I'm actually really fed up with some of the critics talking about Mulholland Drive when there finally seemed to be sort of a recognition of his talent closer to the release of the film. But anyways, again, I'm sort of going. I went a few layers deep on on these. So the point I tried to make in this chat was that, again, we have just a simple visual grammar which is capable of understanding a lot more information in shorter periods of time, and that style of filmmaking is a reflection of that fact. It doesn't automatically mean that it's a bad film. And of course, it's the usual internet reply, oh, well, that's a take. I was like, sure, you've got nothing to contribute, so, sarcasm is going to be the way that we move forward. Fine. Like, you didn't need to say anything. But similarly with the Mario thing, right, with the starting information, the one thing that I think is maybe not properly recognized in those examples is, if I recall correctly, the start for Mario Brothers, like the opening menu, also shows the game being played in the background. So in fact, there is an indicator to the player prior to the first level of how the game should be played, because you actually get to see the recorded video run forward. And I feel that probably isn't appropriately recognized by the people who really want to insist that it's a bad thing that you put the arrow in a modern Mario game. I mean, I just generally think anything that you do to sort of enhance the readability or the playability of something for people is generally a good thing, right? You don't need to put training wheels on everything, but I'm not entirely clear who's harmed or what, how Mario is diminished with the presence of that arrow. But in any case, like, it is probably a fairly, I mean, apparently there's a thing where people just say, just make it like Mario, which is probably very unhelpful advice. But I think there is something to be said for being able to recognize when you are facing something new and how you learn it, right? There are plenty of things that I take for granted inside of Book of Hours, and it's not always so clear to me who I was when I first played this. And so this is one of the reasons why I like to sort of see how the game communicates its ideas. And eventually, I mean, I do want to experience the whole thing. Like, there's bosses in Dark Souls that I never played because I didn't know they existed. But where I can, I really want to try and engage as deeply as I can with the game before consulting those references, simply because I never get the opportunity to to have that experience of learning, and specifically to track myself while I'm doing the learning, which is something that I value the opportunity to do. All right, the room where once the Curia met, a fitting venue for a salon. My guests take their places for lunch. Keep an eye on the salon as it progresses. You will need to add soul cards to encourage the conversation to flow. Different guests will need different soul cards. The more guests, the longer the salon will last. So we're not going to bother going to the Sweet Bones or anything. What I might start doing, I've got 4 health cards, which will never be used in the salon, so it may make sense to start reading some books. I'll maybe do a better job of counting. So I currently need 6 elements of the soul. Spice up the conversation, add an Arab card. So now we need 5. This means there's a free whist, but I don't know what memory I want to put it towards yet. Energetic exchanges. Stanislav and Kokil swap stories of Aunt Mopsy. He met her when she made a pilgrimage to the Grove of Green Immortals and the days he dwelt in its penumbra. She introduced him to her adoptive brother in Tiflis when his tastes had become jaded and he sought more dangerous diversions. So this is Leaves and Thorns. Now actually, oh yeah, I gotta... So that is Nectar and Grail. So I'm slightly inclined to actually use this with Herbs and Infusions just because I realize Pentiments and Precursors would be the one to normally go for on that one, but I think I'm actually going to make it Herbs and Infusions. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to start making some notes of... I want to make a note of what lessons I'm going to need. So... And this is a particularly nice one because I can use both the Hush House key and the scent. So I do apologize, I don't want to break up the salon too much, but this is a nice little opportunity for me to make some progress. Technically, I could also employ the core. Yeah, actually, there's a few others that I can employ now. Conversation ebbs and flows. Lively conversation. Say something witty. Add a shaft card. So we need 4 memories now. Dagmar and Kokil are talking again about the great signs and the great scars. Again, their conversation is punctuated by discussion of the very nice Margrave, to whom Dagmar did in fact introduce Kokil, a fact Dagmar now seems to be regretting. I thought we might have done this already, but... Okay. So I've got the Perugian Diaries, Heart and Nectar. Trying to remember how far we got in here. I think that may be it for my Heart and Nectar too. Yes, these are already impulses. So I could consider some other alternatives, but for now we're just going to go back to the salon. Conversation ebbs and flows. Inject a little gaiety. Add a core card. So great signs and great scars. That I can see going to Pentiments and Precursors. Stanislav gives beekeeping advice to Dagmar. The hives on her estate, she informs him, have been slacking off. Invite a challenge. Add a metal card. Dagmar describes matter-of-factly to Stanislav some of those routes through the bounds which are available only to one who sheds her own blood. She even shows him the scars. So I'm going to wait until I hear the bells and birds. Okay. Serena Blackwood herself forged this key. I'm tired of losing it, she said. Okay, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we have just enough. Okay. I don't think I should try any more, simply because I'm not sure we'll have enough time to level it up. Inject a little gaiety. But basically, this just saves me another round later. So, Dagmar is hectoring Douglas on the Suppression Bureau overreach, but he just sits quietly smiling with his arms folded, and every so often names another incident sinister enough to need Bureau intervention. Reims, or Revik, or Treowin, or the Wildwood Club. Each of these puts Dagmar on the back foot, but she rallies and explains why each in turn is different. This at least gives Douglas time to sip his drink or pack his pipe. I already like Douglas, but these interactions are particularly good. All right, inject a little gaiety. Oh, lots of gaiety this round. Kokil and Arun have discovered that they share family in the subcontinent from which they have both been exiled. They gossip eagerly about their cousin's expression of familial traits, their alterations and development, their new hatched kin. Resurgences and emergences. It's going to be a tough one. Oh. Arun and Kokil have developed a cautious amity. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory, which I will probably not put to good use. Apollo and Marsyas, the libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marsyas and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. In the original myth, Marsyas lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marsyas' skin has a further history. The skin of Marsyas gives oracles and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Cybele use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestess to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. Malachite supplications, prayers addressed to the Malachite by the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot. If we should flourish not, let our enemies flourish in that time when we are no more. One prayer describes how a strong degree of nectar aspect can be used with Lethe and Tridesma Hyra rites to bring forth the last nectar of the last history, the living ink, the ink in secret. Traveling at Night Volume 2, the annotated dream journals of Christopher Olopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist, literate, entertaining, bewildering. There's an extensive discussion on the comparisons between Olopoli's own dreams and those of the Emperor Elagabalus, who Olopoli regards as a dupe or avatar of the sun in rags. The white is west of the world, Olopoli remarks, and winter does not wait forever. Elagabalus found his way to the White Door at last, thankfully. Speech can't pass the White Door, and honestly, Elagabalus never had anything very interesting to say. I tried to follow in his footsteps, but I never learnt enough of the white. I suppose I'm thankful for that too, but here's what I do know. And Fekri Zerberi, the early wisdom of Isan Fekri, at that point a traveling healer, much later the secretary salvant of the Curia of the Isle. As a Skaptodon, Isan may consume only that which is found in the earth, so he is best with root lore. Eason identifies a pale seaweed found on the beaches of Cornwall as a useful source of rose and winter aspect. His tone here is a little guilty, perhaps because he's showing an interest in sea produce, which might be thought unwise for a Scaptodon, and perhaps because his proposal to name it Ava's Lock suggests a tiny crush on the Pale Lady of Brandkrug. Okay. Let's get... So again, I'm cheating a little bit on my heuristic. Oh, that's interesting. Pentiments and precursors. All right. I do kind of want to level up drums and dances earlier if I can. Arguably, it'd be better to do than herbs and infusions, but I don't know. I'm committed now. Feels wrong to give it. Oh, sorry. I gotta get the need to get the lessons. Okay, so okay. So there was an exclamation mark previous. Oh, yeah. Coquille has developed a wary familial affection for Aaron. Aaron has developed a cautious familial affection for Coquille. Lively Salon. You held a lively salon. Use this to remind you that you can't hold another salon until next season. All right. Oh yeah, I guess I wasted this satisfaction. Another curious hunch. Okay, resurgences and emergences, surgeries and exsanguinations, edicts inviolable. We may use that for drums and dances. Great signs, great scars, and leaves and thorns. So leaves and thorns will be the first one. We'll use herbs and infusions. At last I approach mastery. Improve the skill to level 8. So 5 more skills to level up. I guess I could do the ordering now. So we'll use Edicts Inviolable for drums and dances. We use Great Signs and Great Scars for pentiments and precursors. Resurgences and emergences has actually already been spoken for as far as for levels. So surgeries and exsanguinations. Okay, so Magaphine Mysteries would be the next one. Then insects and nectars would be... Well, there's a few of them here. I'm slightly inclined to actually try and bring up the stone stories. But I guess we'll do it the way I said before. So just as a reminder for myself, so pentiments and precursors, drums and dances, resurgences and emergences, surgeries and exsanguinations, and insects and nectars. All of those are sort of in the order in which I want to interact with them. And in fact, once the sun goes down, we'll give it maybe a couple more minutes, but I'm actually going to start loading up on the pentiments and precursors memories. So we can go... Arab. I'll change it up. So we'll do Guiling Melody. And the Karashim Portalon, or I guess I don't remember which of these I did. We'll do Karashim Portalon just so I don't get lost. It's 2. Excuse me. I guess satisfaction again. 3. I guess that's it for the Grail. So scale would be fear. So 4. Trying to think if I've got any more scale. Oh, yeah, hindsight. All right, so that's 5. 6. I just need one more. So, I guess a glass of water? I'll save that for later, though. Maybe once we hit the 30-second mark on the readings. Actually, I should have done even more readings at this point, but we're at least getting started with pentiments and precursors. Close enough. Let's do another whisk just because I have a surplus of that. So if there's any indication that this is going to finish before the night's done, I need to make sure that I put it to bed. Okay, we're good. So basically, we're ready to level this right at the start of the day. Okay, The Wind's Ruin, the second volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of his time as a raider when his name was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence, but there are hints that he also misses those years and the companionship of his sword brother, ship brother, Trygeave. The Carisham Portolan, a beautifully illustrated and heavily annotated portolan, a nautical atlas of ports and destinations. It becomes clear that many of its destinations no longer exist or never existed in any traditional sense, but the annotations remain fascinating. The routes to Noon, the long sanctuary across the Western Sea, may remain viable. 2 pages have been gummed together. When teased apart, they reveal a route to Ye's Behind the Wave, marked in red and gold inks with heavily underlined warnings. Hear the final city, strike the hours, lest earth and sky break open. The Singlefoot Songs, as Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan, near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoot sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. The Rose of Nuriel, a volume of collected teachings of the Sisterhood of the Knot, that arcane contemplative order that existed in all histories, but in some was very powerful indeed. This was recorded by Nuriel and dedicated to St. Tryphon. St. Tryphon, Nuriel explains, performed secret miracles in the name of she who bleeds and bears, and she who opens. Thus St. Tryphon opened the way to the house of the sun. Thus St. Tryphon underwent the great birth, an ascension to immortality. How are you doing, Lord Gloom, and how are you enjoying the game? I don't think I saw you streaming it, but I am an ignorant fellow, so that may not be an indication of anything. Folks, for those of you, I was bad at the shoutouts on Monday, so for those of you who like card games, Lord Gloom does a number of them, including Physical Magic, And I will also say has been playing a lot of War Thunder and War Thunder, World of Warships, and Escape from Tarkov on occasion as well. Sorry, a friend just sent a really interesting. Uh, hmm. Sorry, I just got a whole flurry of notifications that are very interesting. Anyways, your last stream was making a crochet bee. Wonderful. And actually, there are some bee references that I think you will enjoy in Book of Hours when you get to it. I know you've watched me play it, but there's something nice about just finding it yourself. Anyway, sorry, that was a half-done shout out for Lord Gloom, wonderful broadcaster who found us through Cobalt Core, but somebody I'm very happy to have had hang around, and also somebody who I'm happy to be able to catch their own channel. Oh, that would be very cool. I think I've told this story before, but when I worked in movies in Vancouver, I had a director of photography. So I worked in the camera department. So technically the director of photography is in the camera department and the head of the camera department. In practice, though, like, they're doing the work. Like, somebody else is doing the... Usually it was me doing the admin, actually, but that's, neither here nor there. So he was a beekeeper. And in fact, so it was kind of neat because he showed a few of the different grades that he had. Like he also liked his beer. So he sort of said, it's kind of like beer, right? You've got dark honey, you've got, the lighter kind. And there was one, apparently he had some bees that were next to a blueberry orchard. And that was the first time he'd had them. I'm guessing that probably they planted something else in a different year. You could tell, like you absolutely could tell, even though they were all his product, and he'd make a little money on the side selling the honey. You could definitely tell which was which, and the blueberry was a favorite. Like it was one of those ones that was really tough for me, where I wanted to hang on to it because I really liked it, but yeah, I don't know, like it's one of these ones where it's so good I want to keep like having it, but I want to hang on to it so it's like it lasts longer too. Anyway, yeah, that was a fun memory. There's I've noticed that the grocery chain that they have here now has they cut like their black label stuff. So there's like there's it's a company's called Loblaws. It's so they've got like their low cost brand, which is like the no name brand, and that like I'm cheap, so like that would normally be my go-to, except that depending on what you're getting, that cheapness comes at like, so if you're getting a soup and you get a cheap soup, it's probably because you're basically getting salt water. But like for basics, I'm usually pretty happy with no name, because like what else am I gonna do, right? Then their like standard brand is President's Choice, which I think tried at some point to sort of position itself as kind of like a more upmarket sort of thing, but I don't really think it's like Kirkland at Costco, right? It's just going to be, yeah, this is the store brand. It's probably not bad, but like it's not, ooh, we're getting President's Choice today. And then they did, I think they have something called the blue menu, which is supposed to be the healthier option. So like basically any seafood is usually going to have a blue menu item on it, and then they'll have the reduced fat, reduced sodium, reduced whatever versions. Like if you're in the the pre-prepared meals aisle, you'll see like a bunch of blue packaging with some claim that there's less of something in it. So then they seem to add on this extra layer, which they call the black label. Still President's Choice, but that one I noticed said blueberries. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't BC blueberries and nothing like the one that I had, but still, it was tasty, and I'm happy I got it. It's like the one of the rare time. Actually, maple syrup's the other time that I pay up for the good stuff. All right, in memory of gods, the Barrow Child, a nameless Gaulish adept who joined an organization identified as the Ordo Lamea, writes regretfully of the destruction of the gods who were stone, the hours who preceded humanity. The Barrow Child singles out the Scarred Tribune, the Red Grail, the Forge, and the Moth for special condemnation as murderers of the first gods. We live in the shadow of their crime, she writes, and we must evade it or repeat it. The Barrow Child describes how the Grail drained the hour called Tide, how the Moth usurped the wheel from within, stealing its skin, and how the Forge first eclipsed, then shattered flint. Perhaps these are glories, she observes, but then it cannot be that glory is merciful. And the hunting journals of Brian de Wolf. Brian de Wolf, the son of the third Baron Brankrug, gives advice on hunting in the Bounds. It is clear from Brian's journals that he sought unorthodox trophies and put them to unorthodox uses. He was in fact hanged as a witch at the age of 24 and never inherited the estate. Brian describes how a sky-inspired fife can be prepared using these furs and feathers techniques in the presence of greater sky aspect to make of the winds good neighbors. It's a powerful technique to be described so casually. Brian's main interest seems to be in ensuring good weather for his hunts. And the water of the Isle has a very faint, very distinctive taste, sometimes described as apple shroomy. So I should actually get some more water at this point. I've definitely been drawing down on my reserves. So we've got more core. But we should be ready to level up pentiments and precursors now. Now, last time when I used the heart and nectar, I had the, or sorry, when I got the scent, the scent and the sound, I had a clear consider verb. I will actually also bring in Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. So, because I have a little bit more on my plate now, I'm going to use the phonographs. So use a shaft in this case, and we will use Opening the Sky. But I don't think any of these other ones help me with drums and dances. So, heart and nectar. Oh, first of all, solace. That's 2. Okay, where was I on these? 3. I feel like I'm missing something obvious. 4. So there should be a 5th. It's heart and nectar. Impulse, storm. We already have the earth sign. Got the impulse. Fears, regret, satisfaction. Patterns, foresight. Okay, the easy thing for me to do here would just be to count these again. So we've got 1 from the solace. Apparently I'm not using my whists, my desk here, so that's a oversight. So 2 with the satisfaction. 3 with the impulse. 4 with the storm. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, no, it was the 5 was the photograph. All right. So yeah, I'm going to need the consider verbs, but we should be moving on to the next book. So that would be sea stories. Okay, that's going to be a little bit of a pain in the neck to handle, but here's how I'll handle it. Let's first of all we'll use the pale desk. I don't quite know why I didn't trigger that one, but so I'm going to start with the salt and the I think we did the Larkabine Codex. I'm going to start with the salt and everything that Mr. Kill can't duplicate. So contradiction would be a good example of that. And in fact, in honor of Lord Gloom's conversation, we're going to do Honey, a Comprehensive Guide. Confounding Parable. That's a nice emote. Okay, I think I've run out of moon. Yeah, so Stolen Secret's something that Mr. Kill might be able to get me. I'll take my chances. Or actually, I can do the Velletri interviews for the Stolen Secret. And then I can use Collar's Desk to get the intuition. I'm trying to remember. I think we're on to the 3 and the 3 now. Okay. So again, I've got a bit of work ahead of me just in terms of leveling up some of the relevant items. Hey, I think this is the first time I've had all 3 of the white, black, and red books of Britain. Or actually, no, sorry. My other playthrough I have them, but I haven't read them. So this is definitely one we're going to buy. Orflams, thanks you for your custom. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. Okay, the skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. So yeah, drums and dances is next. I don't think we have enough for sea stories, but we could make a bit of progress for that. Sorry, I said I was gonna get the relevant lessons. So Faust. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So I don't think we have any use for the hindsight yet, but We'll see. So I'm in the tricky position now where I have a bit of a backlog on some of the things I want to level up now. Okay. The Geminiad Volume 1, a fragile manuscript illuminated with twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language Fusine is much older. The cover is tooled goatskin, decorated with garnet. These pages outline the nature and the doctrines of an hour that weaves together the willing, an hour that is sought beneath the moon and at the water's edge, the sister and witch. The language is willful, naughty, poetic. It'll take some untangling. The first volume of the Geminiad reminds us that the sister and witch has been known to manifest as the witch and sister, and that this face is always hungry, while the other face may heal. It implies connections between the sister and witch and the hours of the upper Mansus, especially the lunar hour called Meniscate. But it is ambiguous on whether the sister and witch is a Mansus hour proper, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the two who are one, the sadness that remains from their time as flesh. The Queen's Turn, a 16th century translation of the Barrowchild's account of Lagia's turn, when Lagia, the queen unsated, was offered the opportunity to enter the service of the hours of the Triple Knot, as long as she repudiated her brother-lover Antaios. Lagia accepts, setting aside the arts of the low red sun associated with Antaios. She bargains, however, for freedom for her daughters. The hour of the Triple Knot accepts casually, the hours of the Triple Knot accept casually, knowing that Lagia has devoured her daughters, but wily Lagia has decided in the secret hollow of her heart that she will adopt any who ask if they can prove their fierceness. The traditions described here, the ones generally described as hill and hollow, are associated with Lagia before her turn, but now that she's a name of the Red Grail, they might also be safely used before an altar of the Triple Knot. Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king, Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second unsettling, febrile. Third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, and tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong, they recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction that the Bureau does not permit. Honey, the Comprehensive Guide. Harvey Haddington, pilot, polymath, confectioner, writes with great enthusiasm about the marvelous work of the bee. Haddington insists that all the primary aspects, nectar, scale, heart, lantern, moth, grail, are possessed by bees and expressed in honey. Clearly, he points out, there are only 6 primary aspects, as a honeycomb has only 6 angles. Ugal ink is prepared with these techniques, but so is Skinshuck mead, and only Skinshuck requires honey. Just as any beverage or foodstuff can be improved with the addition of honey, so any garden is improved with the presence of bees, even those bloody blumberendi. 108. Ava de Wolf discourses on the fifth history, and particularly on those who are said to have passed over from it, the great hooded princes, the Knocklong who ascended under the mother of ants, but now, so Ava claims, honor the horned axe. The great hooded princes call their library the Tomb of Lies, and this has given rise to a foolish tradition that the princes are habitual liars. Of course, in fact, truth flourishes when lies are slain. On the other hand, the princes do not say knowledge is power, but rather power is knowledge. Ava has, to her regret, never visited the library. She notes that it is said to be west of the Lion and north of Victory, and suggests that, although the princes are generally associated with India, their library might be further east. The Three and the Three, the Kerisham manuscript. A more recent version of a much older text, this book describes the operations of the chancel and the calyptra, 2 triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. It has been heavily censored, but even so contains potent secrets. The deepest knowledge is safeguarded by the covenant of the Watchman's Tree, whose patrons are Calyptra, the 3 flowers on the Watchman's Tree, blood, soot, and snow. Calyptra may be known as night, dawn, eclipse. The chancel may be known as threshold, mirror, shell. Calyptra and chancel, then, are 2. Is Janus a 3rd? The Belletri interviews, interrogation of a man named Lacombe, a former nocturnal branch inspector who is now identified as terminally robogoid. Lacombe is not especially lucid, and the state called robagoya evidently includes a malady of the lungs which causes coughing fits. He weakens audibly over the course of the interrogation. He is questioned about the disposition of various unsanctioned items recovered from a nocturnal branch raid on Castle Ortuccio in the region of the Fucine Marshes. He is, however, defiant as well as incoherent. Lacombe insists the items that have been put to good use. He derides Nocturnal Branch as the lackeys of Calyptra. Alarmingly, during the last few minutes of the interrogation, he begins to insist that his interrogator should burn the library. He waxes enthusiastic about the fire he wants to see, leading to a final coughing fit, after which the interview abruptly ends. The Berry Book. Thirza Blake, 7th librarian of Hush House, talks about fruit, for no other apparent reason but that it was the kind of thing that she did. She talks about fruit in the woven language Kilisimi. Who was it once said fruit is the womb of a plant? It was me. Take a few moments to think on that in ripened wisdom. I shall leave a blank space for your moments here in this page. Nectar, children mine, cast my words into a sufficiency of nectar, and watch the Pyrus persimmon burst from wood. Gather more nectar, wring it from the trees and the earth, and our persimmon gushes forth the sacrament. You will thank me. What does not bark? Alexander Probst writes warily of Calyptra, a law, principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star, or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? The Book of Masks, Athena Vanna's work on the rogue hour called the Vagabond, who is also known as the Laughing Thrush, the Centipede, the Pilgrim, and by many other names, or, as Vanna has it, Masks. The Mask of the Laughing Thrush, says Athena Vanna, had a great friendship with the sun and splendor, the highmost hour of the Mansus, now divided and departed. The Mask of the Sight Thief painted the river in the Mansus. The Mask of the Vagabond was forbidden the Mansus, not for what she had done, but for what would occur. The Mask of the Centipede recalled her birthplace, Maya, which had punished her for creeping into the temple precinct. This mask cursed Maya to drink only dust and to be remembered only for the wind, for not beneath any mask does she forgive, and the centipede's hunger is not to be forgotten. Okay, so I've caught up on material. One thing I am going to need to do, and I'll make a note of this, is I need to drink something. But I could use a small break here. One, just to clear the fuzz out. Two, to get a just get a cup of tea. I will caution, I don't want to drag things out too long, but this one might be a slightly longer break than usual. But in preparation, Vesper Fortune very kindly sent me some Be Right Back screens, and I've wanted to incorporate them in the stream for a while. And I'm actually going to do it now because I clearly can't be trusted to get it done on my own time. Oh, it does not let me put it right in the center? All right, fair enough. Feels weird. I don't know. I always like to have a little bit of the game on the screen, so how do I do this? That's about as close as I'm gonna get. All right, there you go. Thank you to Vesper Fortune for this. I am going to... yeah, tell you what. Oh God, what did I just do? No. Oh. Okay, good. Hello, Revive Snow. You've very kindly said hello right as I'm hosting people a couple of times. So let me just get a quick shout out before I begin my break in earnest. Revive Snow is a wonderful fellow Canadian streamer. I've really enjoyed Revived's sort of rhythm streams, whether they have been Rift of the Necrodancer or some of the VR games like Beat Saber. But overall, I just say Revive Snow is a lot of fun to hang out with. It's a very unique broadcast in terms of having both a VTuber avatar as well as text to speech, and carries it off very, very well. So it's definitely one of the most unique and one of the really, for me at least, one of the ones that I do enjoy hanging out with. The only catch is that I tend to host Revive Snow. I tend to watch Revive Snow when I host, and I tend to host at the end of a broadcast when I'm trying to get to bed and have like a proper like get a proper like sleep. But yeah, it's not easy, but I still like it. It's one of those ones that I'm happy to be bad at. But in any case, please do check out Revive Snow. I am going to go and refill my tea. Like I said, I don't want to deliberately drag my feet, but I am going to need a minute just to get myself sorted out. It also occurred to me that I did not have my proper dashboard up. So hopefully there isn't some kind of catastrophe. Oh yeah, I also forgot to get rid of the... Sorry, you all miss out on the deal of a lifetime. Okay. Thank you all for your patience. I will be back soon, and perhaps you can get up and have a drink yourself. Anyways, I'll see you in a bit. Zerog coming in hot with the combination Book of Hours and Warhammer 40k references. Thank you all for your patience. I will figure out how to manage my tea and my time better, but I'm hoping to be more refreshed. We're beginning a snowstorm tonight. It might even be like 2 straight days of snow, it seems like. But so it's a little chilly, but yeah, basically as long as I have a blanket and some kind of warm drink, I should be able to manage. Okay, so let's, you already went out and shoveled, my God. Yeah, I don't drive. I have no idea what public transit's going to be like tomorrow, but we'll see. All right. I think the idea is like it's school buses are canceled, but school isn't for parents. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people not sure what to do tomorrow. Okay. A sense of awareness persists, but the plant remains immobile, unsettling but harmless. It doesn't even have thorns. So, I think I made a mistake. I think I said I needed taste, but I need sound. So, take that. I need to find the... So, it's all 2s and 3s. Okay, Trist will do. Investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing this. And I think I need to sort my memories out a little bit here. So, we'll take Edicts and... yeah, we'll put Edicts Inviolable up here. So, we've got the Solace... Impulse, Cheerful Ditty, Satisfaction, Storm, and Scent. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sound that I just get, or that I'm getting next, will be the one to push us over the edge for Drums and Dances. For Sea Stories, we need... So we're using Resurgences and Emergences. So Salt, Intuition, Stolen Secret, Confounding Parable, and Contradiction. So this one's a little tricky. Hello, Jamie. How are you doing tonight? So this one's going to be a little tricky just because of the competing needs. So for instance, Satisfaction would be good for Sea Stories, but I can't use that with Sea Stories. Well, actually, I guess I can now because we're going to have it in 30 seconds. But I'm going to use the Lake Fusino recordings. So, tricky call on this one. I think we'll use the FET. So that gets me... So that's 6. Yeah, and then we can do the Satisfaction because we know... we know this will be used within 30 seconds. Nope. Okay, so that is Drums and Dances and Sea Stories taken care of. Next up will be Magathene Mysteries. Now again, there's a small risk here in the sense that this is working with some of my heart stuff, but we'll have this all cleared out. So we can go for the Cheerful Ditty, the Solace, the Storm. I think that's it actually, because anything else when I start trespassing on the moon. But it gives me something to work with. So we'll do the Invisible Opera again. Whist for the Solace. Starting to run out of options here. Those who do not sleep. I think I'll leave it there. And then I guess sharps next. But again, all the sharp stuff. I mean, I guess I can bring in the fear. Um, you know what? I'm actually going to wait on that one just simply because we're fairly early into the day and I actually have a little bit of a backlog to kind of go through. So in this case, I think I'm just going to let the timer run by. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? I can't remember if I actually queued up a... I don't think I queued up a gossip, so that will help me with the sea stories. Little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. So I figure it doesn't hurt to have a... it's technically two or more backups, but... random question, how many hours do you have in Book of Hours? And is it your most played game of all time or not even close? I don't think... It's up there, but I don't think it's my highest. So currently, Book of Hours says 968 hours. That will, of course, include time in the beta. And then any like maintenance that I do, like so if I'm trying to do some kind of bug report or something, and I'm looking for it. So, but I'd say it's close to time spent playing and streaming it. Under playtime, my highest is still Dota 2. So that's 2,652.4 hours. Cultist Simulator, 704 hours. Again, streaming's a big contributor to that. Quite a bit of time in Old World, 291. I remember once upon a time, Civilization 5 used to be my top game. That's 211. But I mean, obviously, that's far surpassed by the stuff that I stream. Yeah, I've got a few games that I spend a lot. I'm probably ones that are not like big surprises. So Civ 6 is up there as well. I have a feeling that Civ 6 would be higher, except for the fact that I also, like, you can sort of see Civ 5 is an old game. Like, that's I'm trying to remember when that was released. That was probably 2010 or thereabout. Yeah, most people don't expect that, actually. Yeah, I played a lot of Dota 2. I'm probably no good at it now because the game's changed a lot since the last time that I played it. But yeah, I've always really liked the Civilization games, and the only thing I can say is that, you know, like if it's 15 years since Civilization 5 came out, I don't even know if I started playing it when it first released. Actually, I don't know if it ever says when you first play a game, but the thing is that, like, while it's true that I was in school for some of this stuff, it's also true that there's been a shift in terms of my sort of professional life. So, you know, I definitely did some gaming when I was in film, but I mean, those times my weekends were really, like, I had a much clearer sort of division between my working life and my recreation. And in fact, a very large amount of my recreation was dedicated to gaming. Whereas now I have a little bit more of a balance in terms of my how I spend my recreation time, as well as, you know, just in general. Actually, the balance that's kind of undone is my work life and my home life, because I do... Oh yeah, another game with greater than 200 hours is Dark Souls. Which is probably another one that maybe surprises people. But yeah, I think probably one of the things that explains why Civ 6 is one that isn't as big or as high on my time played compared to Civ 5 is that in addition to school, it's the time when, I've kind of moved out to a new city specifically to do work. And I've definitely spent more time than just my normal working hours to do some stuff. So I do think that sometimes had a bit of a clamp down a bit on my on the some of the favorite games that I play, let's say. Anyway, but yeah, I do feel there's a slight unfairness in terms of the hours played for the how do I put it, the streaming games, just because like if you think of it, right, I don't take long break. I've actually taken more time being sick than I have like taken time off for streaming, which is something I need to kind of work out, because I'm not entirely sure that's the best habit. But I don't know, like I feel the streaming stuff, if you think about it, particularly if it's a game that I sort of mainline, like Book of Hours, about 9 hours a week, usually more. And then you do that over a few weeks, even over the course of a year, you're really looking at something that adds up. So, and again, I don't regret it. Like it's I think it's time well spent in that case, but it does get a little surprising when you see those hours dedicated towards entertainment products, for sure. One of the things I am actually kind of happy about, this wasn't so much a New Year's resolution as it was just, it coincided with the new year. I've gotten a bit better at dedicating time to reading specifically fiction. And I did actually notice, just in terms of some of the changes, like I've never found it hard to come up with ideas for things. But I'm noticing that there's actually a meaningful shift in the types of ideas that I'm having for either stories or game ideas, or sometimes some work stuff, but like usually just in the sense of like, hey, this would be kind of a neat thing to experiment with, or hey, what if we did, X, Y, or Z? And again, it's one of those ones that you can kind of only appreciate once you actually do it. But that's an example of something that in one sense you can sort of say has been cutting into my gaming time, except that really, like, you should see gaming as cutting into your reading time, in my opinion. It's hard, right? Because gaming has that immediate attention grabbing effect, whereas books, particularly if you don't get in the habit of reading them, can produce these you can feel the drag, and sometimes there's a bit of inertia in getting started, but it's definitely worth it. And I think you do tend to find that if you build the habit again, if it's one that maybe you got out of practice with, it is something that you can restore. Although obviously I do feel there's sometimes an impatience that comes up when you sort of remember that you're a better reader than you were. Like, to give you an idea, in Vancouver, because I was interested, I read as much as I could of the CFA textbooks, which were in the reference section of the library, because I kind of wanted to learn a thing or two about investments. And I still sort of think that I could do that, but there's definitely enough stuff to sort of pull on my attention that it becomes a little bit more of a struggle, just because, again, sitting down with a sustained focus on a very technical book like that, I have to have that interest. And then, of course, number two, because I haven't done that as often, I always know there's going to be, like, I have a smartphone, I have I've got a decent enough computer that can do all sorts of fun things. And it does mean that I have, a few... I need to put the effort into making sure that I'm not drawing away that time. Takri, lovely to see you as always. How are you doing? Two Wombs, One Heart, a fanciful account by Thurza Blake of the early life of the twins, their time as mortals before they became hours or even long in a dry kingdom beyond the Western Sea, which Thurza suggests might have been ancient Mexico. It is widely known that the sister was rich and the witch poor. It is widely known that the witch loved the sister first. It is not widely known that the witch was first employed to teach the sister the arts of embroidery. Although Thurza is very possibly just making up much of the story, there are long passages expounding notable techniques of weave work and thread fight. In particular, when witch and sister flee across the sea to be together, Thurza explains how they fashioned a peace weave with Heart and these arts, and then, to tame the winds, called on Heart again to swaddle the thunder in the peace weave. Oh, I forgot you had a game tonight. The Orchid Transfigurations, Noon, the third volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. A long dialogue between the Mountain Mother and the Vigilant Storm describes the ways in which both mountains and storms end, and the protections they use against those ends. But we must use the knife, said the lion-throned one. The noose, the flame, the waking word against those who have passed the three-valve door. And so none may pass. That is our law and the law of the sun. Well, congratulations. And of course, your I don't know if I should say your loss is my gain, but I'm always happy to see you in the channel. I also know I haven't crashed in on one of your watch parties lately, but that's also partly just because I've been incredibly busy. It's never nice to say, oh, I'm too busy for you, but in this case, I've not usually been at a computer that I can say hi in, so. All right, The Invisible Opera, unfinished recording. A recording of a 1911 attempt at a performance of Wings Within Wings, the so-called Invisible Opera. The singers complete the skewbald aria, Beneath Our Skin and A Rose in Maya, without incident, but the Invisible Opera is dedicated to Faresref the Magpie, who delights in unexpected interruptions. The recording ends with a clamor of horrified voices, a grating metallic screech, and a soft brass buzzing that fades into burring silence. Lake Fusino recordings of the folk dances of the Fusine marshes, the wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These are the songs the sisters sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs with which the Dwendrazones of the Mansis keep their vigil. Once heard, they are not forgotten. Oh, fair enough. And Those Who Do Not Sleep, the mystic Broadnax discusses the origins of the sister and witch and of the Thunderskin. The sister and witch were born in two wombs, one poor and one rich, across the sea. The sister was stronger in the aspect of heart, and so their survival was assured. The witch was stronger in the aspect of Grail, and so they were not satisfied. When the sister and witch came west, the Red Grail permitted their ascension, but then grew jealous of their power. It lured a great musician into the ranks of its names, and caused him to be reborn from blood as a heart hour, so that the Grail might maintain dominion there also, but its victory is not assured. Nah, it's all good. I definitely know the challenge. I mean, one thing I found for myself, as much as I generally like Apple products, I have found that the autocorrect on the iPhone has gotten measurably worse. And I think it's probably because they're using... I wouldn't be surprised if they were using more sort of AI-driven autocorrects. And the real challenge here is that what I am finding is it will just correct to words that I do not intend. And I can see how these are words that would commonly be used in text, but I obviously have a very distinct way of writing. And it's very annoying to intend one thing and then have the phone switch it to another. It's actually, I've gotten to a point where I may want to just simply disable autocorrect altogether. But I haven't actually gotten the courage to do it yet. Because I mean, I do also make mistakes too, so. All right, the skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. So we are going to be working with sea stories next. So probably the satisfaction is the... Or hang on. The beguiling melody doesn't work with the... Yeah. At last, I approach mastery. Okay, so Magaphine Mysteries is up next. That would be with surgeries and exsanguinations. So 1, 2, 3, 4... The sharps is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but let's focus on one thing at a time. The one bit of good news is, as long as I get this done before the end of the day, the clouds are something that I can employ. So Magaphine Mysteries, let's find all the heart, and then we'll do the moon, because the surplus moon, of course, will go to insects and nectars. So, Solace we've got. No heart, 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 no, this is moon. We already have the satisfaction, no heart, no heart, no heart, but it does have a moon. Again, no heart, but a moon. No heart in hindsight. We've got the storm. Okay. So I think we have all the heart stuff that I'm going to get, unless I start, you know, doing things like the Thunderskin's Paean. So I need 3 more moon. And in this case, I'm just going to get as much moon as I can, for the simple reason that I don't have, like, I'm gonna need moon for the next 2, so... we will go... Ganesh, get the spider's door. Excuse me. Oop. Salt. Clark Q, good to see you. And thank you. I hope you are doing well. Folks, for those of you who don't know, it's been a while since I've done the credits for Book of Hours, but I should mention that Cluckyu is one of those nice people who has a credit on this game for help with translation. So I hope you all ooh and ah in reverence. All right, we're on to the other line. And we can get the intuitions. But I think that's it for moon stuff. But I can get the remaining nectar, I suppose. So we'll grab an impulse. This one would be ambrosial. I guess that would be it for the nectar, because I don't want to use the earth sign. I mean, I will if I have to, but... okay, I think that's good enough for now. Another gossip. I don't think that one helps me, no. So I suppose in a pinch, I could try and get the sound again, but that's going to take up the consider verb for 30 seconds, and I think it's just as easy for me to regain the memory. All right, the skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. It is worth noting that, like, we only have 2 more of these to go, so in 30 seconds I should have enough to be able to level up Magaphine Mysteries, and then after that, you know, Insects and Nectars for Sharps is it, so I don't really need to... I don't need to panic as far as the skills are concerned. I suppose it's also worth noting that I do have the next book that I'll be buying, but that's... I'm happy to deal with that tomorrow. That doesn't have to be resolved right away, especially because we will be fast forwarding to the next event, I think. Or actually, I guess I said I was going to investigate the furniture. Well, I'll still fast forward, but I think I said I was going to investigate the furniture while we did that. Okay, the account of Kanishk at the Spider's Door. Lot Kahuli, Kanishk's victim and lover, wrote this account, perhaps posthumously. Kanishk sought to become a name. In pursuit of that end, he made Lot Kahuli the vessel of his appetites, promising Locke that they would ascend together. At the Spider's Door, he betrayed his lover. The Chiliarch listened to it happen, and then forced Kanishk into his service. The Chiliarch cannot be denied. Lot Kahuli remained to write this work, and to describe the outer magics of struggle and contest. The Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. When the heart no longer beats, the grail may keep the spirit in the body, and an appetite is indicated to sustain. Alukites are the best known, but not the only of this nature. This is the waning moon mode. The full moon mode is the intensification of one element of the soul to the point where ordinary sustention is unstable. Our protector, the generous of hosts, began of this nature, and its generosity remains ungentle. It is possible for the body's health or the heart's core to outpace the other elements, so that a static mode becomes impossible and growth proceeds in dramatic stages until balance remanifests. The Three and the Three, the Vatican manuscript. A church-authorized version of an older text, this book describes the chancel and the calyptra, 2 triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. It has been clearly reworked to fit church doctrine. The deepest knowledge is forbidden to all mortals except those who seek it beneath the watchman's tree. It is Calyptra that planted that tree, but it is the chancel, the cruciate, that has elected Calyptra. Who then elected the cruciate? Or is this, as the saying goes, a matter of Janus? The sister and the witch is cruciate, but the witch and sister is not. Even those powers that demand a conjunction are not always conjoined. When the sister is nowhere, does this mean that nowhere sits in crucium? Ambrosial. Ambrose Westcott's inventive, one might say pioneering, or indeed buccaneering essays into kitchencraft. Westcott proudly announces his intention to transform cuisine to become an engine of alchemy, a fount of war. Westcott compares the ferocity of fire with the intensity of appetite as, in essence, one essence. A fire's ability to transform and destroy grows when it is offered the correct fuel. So, too, he implies, can a sufficiently inspired appetite allow its possessor to consume greatly, strangely, unwisely. The Other Line. One of Samuel Savage's more thoughtful works, an allegorical play about the city Clarity, a city that is also a book, and the sentences which inhabit it. The Lord's Proverbial and the Lord's Disquisitional war in the streets of Clarity, while the punctuants get drunk on ink and supply the jokes, though by Savage's usual standards there aren't very many jokes. The final act sees the Lord's Proverbial unsealing the city Clarity's gate to expel the population into the unknown. The formula that they use for the unsealing is a real one. It can be used with knock and preliminal meter to create a gate sign of power. And De Oris, Book 3, in Latin, a 19th century reprint by the indefatigable Nathaniel Darcy Evers of a 14th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. This is usually described as the third volume of De Oris, but Darcy Evers' foreword suggests persuasively that it's a substantial reworking by the original author. The linesmith makes monsters, the colonel has his scars, but the De Oris now insists that neither can truly defeat the other, that they must at some level understand these limits in their strategies, and that their enmity is an eternal engine of the world. All right, let's sort this out. So, Magaphine Mysteries. So this is going to be Heart and Moon. One of the things I want to focus on is making sure that all of the heart gets used. So Cheerful Ditties, Storm, Solace. So these are secondary, but I do need 3 more. So I want the Stolen Secret, the Intuition, and then for one of these, I need to pick, I guess we can do the Confounding Parable. So this approach is the one that sort of minimizes the memory that Mr. Kill might gobble up. So I have plenty of core. At last I approach mastery. So the last step here, we've got 4 of the 7 required. So we're going to get 3 more, and this will be either Moon or Edge. So metal will give me some edge. That's 1. Two. 3. And because it's late enough in the day, I might be able to get by with reading the Black Book of Brittany, but I think I'm happy enough to leave that for tomorrow. So yeah, I think we do have a bit of winter to go through. What I'll do for... So the plan here will be I'll read the Black Book of Brittany. I think I'll get 2 memories out of that. So I would want, if it's Inks of Containment, it's basically Winter and Moon. So that would suggest... Desires and Dissolutions and Putrefactions and Calcinations. Of course I've got Dueling Winter. Or Dueling Moon, rather. Alright, I'll make it work. But yeah, once I've kind of queued up the memories that I need for those skills, the rest of the time with the consider verb will be spent looking at furniture and such. What I may do though, because I've started so many times on the right-hand side of the house, I may actually start in the Cougar bit and like go through the solar period, just so that I can maybe catch up on some of the things that I haven't investigated before. On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Loss. An account of an occult romance, a certain Para, son of Aaron, claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Damascene branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who rejected their past and future. And if you can bear with me a second here, I'm just going to have a quick sip. The laws of the house forbade Matthias to love. The customs of the wood forbade the Imago to remain. So he conjured her a final time, when she had uncovered the shears of Alcapura, and she suffered him to cut the wings from her back so that she might remain, and he suffered her to cut the parts which hold man's seed to keep them from the detestable act. This was love in all its blood and joy. We have cast out Matthias from the house. In the Cradle of the Roots, Matthias and the Imago left their names, and though their names were lost, they found their name day riddles. This we recall in Solution and Separation, so that in the presence of the moth, our memories may become our futures. Do this wisely, in memory of the name and the long who gave up their past that they might be together forgotten. The Locksmith's Dream, Portions and Proportions, the second volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Galmier records fewer dreams and explicates more on her own elaborate theories. We see this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar, but I think that secret is only half the story. And The History of Inks, a legendary grimoire of exotic ink-making lore. The cover and some of the pages, unfortunately, are stained with and crusted with something more like mucus than ink. The Incasta Maricat is refined from the liquor named Lethe in the presence of nectar aspect. The priestesses of the knot have also learnt to brew Maricat in this wise, yet for the nature of their arts, their task may be easier. The history concludes with the admission that the incastum named Orpiment Exultant was once drawn from the veins of Forgelong. Thankfully, it seems, it can also be refined from iotic essence using the techniques in the book or with transformations and the jewel science. So we go to sharps. Clearly, I made a mistake. All right, no biggie. I mean, it's we can almost certainly get another edge out of it. I don't always get to read the I don't always get to read the fear shelf, so that'll be a minute. Actually, I guess what I can do as well, I can make good on my promise of looking for things. So this is one thing I want to avoid when I'm looking at the items in the Kukerbit. I don't actually want to pause and look at them. I kind of want to just drive through. Now, we have definitely looked at the St. Tryphon painting before, but... So in theory, right, this sort of stuff can also be done to get me, you know, like a site, or, you know, there's a few different memories that get generated by this, but because it takes up the consider verb, it's the sort of thing that I don't always want to, like, I don't want to dedicate to leveling up unless it happens to be something that pushes me over the edge. And that's just because, you know, right now I've got a pipeline which generally allows me to sort of do the 30-second level up. Like, once I kind of get a bit of a runway, that 30 seconds that it takes to level something up, I can get through that pretty quickly. It's why we're able to basically do a salon's worth of lessons in a day. But if, on the other hand, I turn that into a minute wait so that I can get the... you know, the site or something like that, that winds up having a bit of a... That just sort of interrupts the overall flow. Lady Tryphon, a very old portrait in the Byzantine style. A handwritten card tucked into the frame reads, "Sequester on site, GC." Government of Canada? Oh, hey, there's our edge that we needed. At last, I approach mastery. While we're at it, I might as well make a bit of money. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. So if I want, I can try and preserve one of these. I suppose the site wouldn't be a bad idea to keep... And that's just simply because, so what I'm going to be doing here, I'm going to be working with the Black Book of Brittany. So at the start of the day, while I'm reading the Black Book of Brittany, I will be, I'll also be generating the memories for the skills that I want to level up. And I might need 2 rounds of that actually. So anyways, we'll see. I don't want to, I should probably not finish that thought until I actually have an idea of the time it's going to take me. Nix Abilix, a grim treatise on those feasts that occur, those feasts that are not to be witnessed. The Alukites, who feasted on their children and became monsters. The Dragonkinds among the Carapace Cross, who feasted on our flesh and became monsters. The Calavites, who drank of Echidna's bounty and became monsters. Marinette the Legion, so young, so hungry, all her children cannot slake her thirst. When Moth rose, another held the flaying key, but at the Grail's bidding did Marinette consume that she. There we go. So it's worth kind of noting this milestone here. Or no, it's maybe not a milestone, but definitely it's a worthwhile indicator. So out of the skills that are not languages, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 skills that are like not at the top level yet. Any of these other ones, and there's quite a few 8s, but basically everything from Anbury and Lapdary down to Sharps, which is the majority of my skills, these are effectively, I get 1 more, and then I can't level them up any higher. In the very rare chance, on the very rare chance that we get to that point, I will try and use the lessons to level up the languages, but like I don't want to spend a whole lot of time thinking about that if I do wind up going down that path. Anyway, we have some work to do, so we will read the Black Book of Brittany. I am actually going to make an yeah, I got to think about when I do this, but I would like to read the Red, White, and Black Books of Brittany all in one go. So we'll take the Edicts Martial here. Actually, this is one that I'll want to employ my Tryst with, because then I can add the Lunar Globe. So I can master this mystery, enough moon to match mystery moon. And like I said, we already planned out our skills, so in this case I'm going to need Grail, Winter, and Moon. So let's start. I should actually do this the usual way that I handle it. So because it's Moon, we can do the Tower Rises and Tower Falls. And we'll do the Velletri interview. Let me see if I can make this work. So I can't do this one again. I don't know. Do I want the Beguiling Melody from the Lake Fusino recordings, or do I'll do the Lake Fusino recordings again, but I feel like I should probably get the Beguiling Melodies through books again soon. We've listened to the Lake Fusino recordings quite a bit. Okay, so we'll do a pass for Grail first. So Pursuit. We may have actually read this recently, but I figure it's close enough to the other one that it might be interesting. I guess we're on to... Oh! We are reading the Red Book of Brittany. Fair enough. Okay. I think that's it for Grail. Yes. So now I'm going to focus on Moon. So we're on to Gospel of Zacchaeus here. Have I done a Fusine? I kind of want to... I want to jump ahead to Voyages of Furnish and of Oriel just because we keep skipping it because we don't have Fusine. And then I'll go back to do the crossing to Noon. Okay, moon, 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 moon. Already getting the confounding parable. Okay. And so that leaves me with the winter stuff to accumulate. So I really only have one more desk to do that at, which is not a hardship. I guess I could also use the consider verb to read a book, actually, so I'll probably do that as well. So the first winter text that I would want, we'll do the Book of the Extinguished Heart. And it's kind of our choice in terms of what other winter text we want. I mean, the rest of these are ones that Mr. Kill may wind up giving us, but I don't think it hurts to just sort of queue up a bunch of useful memories. I also don't know what the Black Book of Brittany is going to give us, so some of these may get doubled up. Yeah, I think we'll just go top to bottom on these, so that would be... I don't even remember which of these we're on to. Let's go from Barrowchild. I know I did this recently, but we'll do Barrowchild's elegies and work our way up. Okay, so now this is going to be a little bit of a wait while we, we'll talk with Mr. Kill and we'll get what we can done. But right now we're really just waiting for the chance to do the lessons. We'll have 1 minute after the we'll have 1 minute after the first round of books are done, but I have a pretty clear idea about how I want to use that time. I don't think it would hurt to be getting some more money as well, but I know the St. Ronwin stipend's going to come in fairly soon, so we'll just stay focused on the lessons I can get. Okay, the Barrowchild's elegies. The Barrowchild, a Gaulish adept who won a place in the ranks of the Order Lamea, enumerates the great shadows laid to rest in the tombs of power and discusses their various conditions. The Barrowchild identifies numerous modes that are neither true death nor true life: the vitrification of the heart, the corrupt light of the wood, core stasis, the wandering of the fet. The Barrowchild warns particularly of the avidity of tryst, where a remnant shadow's longing for change survives its sense of self and even devours its wist. That longing may draw the curious into the tomb, where the remnant shadow changes so that it cannot be distinguished from its visitor, or that the reverse becomes true, and that it is never again possible to say whether it is the shadow or the visitor that exits the tomb. Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Pursuit. An account of an occult romance. A certain Mech claims to have written this in a single night as his initiation into the Theban branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who use the arts of water to conceal themselves. Matthias defied us to hunt the names of the moth in the wood to populate his pinned collection. The Amethyst Imago had dallied with the witch and sister, but she'd returned to the wood to plead the moth's pardon. The moth, as a whim or penance, sent her out to lure the Long to a slough of nightmares. Matthias loved the Imago. Did he? Can Long love, or has that organ of their soul desiccated beyond repair? The Imago loved Matthias. Did she, or did she only enact a whim? He pursued her through the wood, but at last they turned aside from their the nightmare slough, and they lay together where the bounds grow bright. So they learnt the Grail's pleasures, and this is the lore they won. Lake Fusino recordings of the folk dances of the Fusine marshes, the wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These are the songs the sisters sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs with which the Dwendrazones of the Mansis keep their vigil. Once heard, they are not forgotten. The Voyages of Furnishon of Oriel, the impossible travels of a sea captain of the late Phoenician era, suppressed throughout recorded history. Those who read it were said to disappear. Furnishon clearly visited the Mansis, sailing the length of the Painted River. He also claims to have traversed a sea of finest sand, to have dared the blazing waves of the sun's surface, and to have descended to an underworld ocean lit by lamps of black nephrite. Furnishon's final voyage is to retirement on a peaceful island across an evening sea, where he identifies a spring whose waters will keep him safe. I will be forgotten, he declares, and this work my only trace. The Ascendant, the edgelong Dardesh, boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tareg in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Sweeter than wine, than nectar is the blood of my brother. We have raised up armies one against another. We have sated the Blackbone with the sinking of our ships. Dardash's boasting at length turns melancholy. An edgelong is half a dyad. She may not defeat her hated brother enemy without ending herself. She doesn't even want to, but she is aware to her frustration that she is a piece on the board, an axle on the ox cart, an essential part of the eternal engine of contention which the Lionsmith and Colonel use to sustain the world. The Gospel of Zacchaeus, an extremely heterodox account of the Nazarene Messiah and his works, describing his ascension to the Mansis through the opening of his body. 7 were the wounds of his body, 7 the doors of the house, 7 the lesser aspects of the hours, and knock the aspect above all, for the mother of ants is the mother of salvation. The book includes a description of a rite which can be used to raise a corpse to half-life in memory of he who bled for the wood, but the marginalia claim that the mother of ants no longer permits use of this rite. The Concursum Diaries, the diaries of the explorer and murderer Lars Westergren. He's unhelpfully translated them into Frisian, for privacy. There are map legends, there are maps of legends, and there are legends of maps. Aspects of the Mansis subsist in all of these, in much the same way that you find water in a swamp, and in a cup, and in the sky. Westergren describes a series of expeditions into the Mansis. He focuses on the details of the experience, the colors, the vistas, the textures, rather than the practicalities. He does warn that the Mansis changes each year, although he assures the reader that the doors have been the same. Doors may close, but they never disappear, at least not while there have been mortals in the Mansis. We're like mice. The Book of the Extinguished Heart. In the days of the Shadowless Kings, Ennis Lazali was executed for prophesying the division of the sun. If any of his captors grew long, they probably feel rather abashed now. Lazali indicates the sun will be divided in the Mallory by the Forge of Days, armed with the love in her heart. Love will not be the cause of the sun's death, but rather envy. Envy will not be the cause of the sun's death, but rather thirst. Thirst shall not be the cause of his death, but curiosity. Curiosity shall not be his end, rather it shall be love. A Tower Falls. The phonograph is packaged in glossy amethyst purple card, with the words "A Tower Falls" in 9 languages on both sides. There is no other identifying information at all. A recording of uncertain origin, inexplicably compelling poetry, recorded by a speaker with a rasping, rumbling, impossibly deep voice in the language called Vak, which probably isn't spoken by more than a few dozen living scholars. The poem speaks of a 4-winged war, a 4-mouthed king, a 4-rayed sun, a 4-cornered stone. It speaks of a tide-washed hunger of the heart. It speaks lastly of its own conclusion, when it might be spoken in dreams before the deep door by a messenger of histories. The Red Book of Brittany, a volume of ink lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The red flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree are constant. The red flower is described as the temptation of suffering, but its suffering can apparently be allayed when the copper fruit is enspelled with nectar aspect alongside herbs and infusions techniques. A variant of the same approach, with the inks of power techniques outlined here, can gentle Lethe into a great ink. Okay, so I want to do a little bit of division here, so we'll say... So put the regret and the bittersweet certainty aside. So Grails, Okay, so this is a decent breakdown. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's just basically, at this point, we want to throw as much winter at the problem as we can. So we have the regret and we have the bittersweet certainty. At this point, we want to see if there's anything else we can dig up. So hindsight for sure. I'm trying to remember where we were. I guess we're back to Nin's Cave. I feel like I restart. Actually, you know what? Sorry, I have to. White Book of Brittany, of course. I actually think that might be it for winter. Because we have the regret. We have the bittersweet certainty. We have the hindsight. In fact, we also have a Newman if I need, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to do this in more than one part. So this is a time I'm willing to sort of speed things up. We'll keep going with Mr. Kill, but other than that, we'll just wait till the books are finished. So impulse doesn't really mean much, but all right. The White Book of Brittany, a volume of death lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The white flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deeper than snow. The white flower is described as the death of wisdom, but wisdom can pass into sleep, not death, when the rage of glass is subjected to a sufficiently powerful winter aspect, while the ragged crossroads arts are invoked. And the Black Book of Brittany, a volume of ink lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The black flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deep, and they may not be hidden forever. The black flower, spoken of as a doom or guise, can be held at bay with the last ink of power, brewed from the pale mixture in the presence of sufficient winter with the arts of containment. I've always wondered about this particular one, if there's something about the flowers on the watchman's tree and sorry, was it flowers on the, anyways, the flowers on the tree and also Calyptra and something about, I mean, there's obviously already a reference to the Incastum and the flowers, but I'm wondering specifically here if there's something about a specific connection between individual inks and individual another bittersweet certainty. Fair enough. But yeah, I'm wondering if there's something specific about certain inks rather than the idea of Incasta in general. All right, there's my 2 lessons. So let's get to work. So desires and dissolutions, all the grail first. I guess I'll do the stolen secret and the intuition because those are things that Mr. Kill might wind up giving me. And I guess here we can do the confounding parable and the salt. Okay, so we've got 3, 4... We just need 3 more. So first of all, we'll make up the missing salt. So 1 there. Just need 2 more. In fact, we don't need to go too much further, so we can do deaths and their evasions. That's 2 of the 3. And then just collected Hush House lectures. Call it a day. I'm very curious if after playing Book of Hours, I'm going to enjoy Cultist Simulator more. And hello, Ever-Waiting Sleeper. It's because of the items on the... It's not notifications so much as just letting me know how many items I have on the Kukabit Bridge. But how are you doing tonight? So Lord Gloom, it's a tricky call. What it comes down to is what's sort of driving the interest, I think. So if you are compelled by the setting, right, all of the different clues that you get from some of the different books and such, then Cultist Simulator is going to give you a certain perspective on the world that you don't necessarily get from Book of Hours. And that, I think, can definitely be an engine that will drive someone to become, invested in the playthrough, right? In a way that maybe they were turned off by some of the more obscure challenges and puzzles and such. Now, if on the other hand, the challenge was more, I want to like this game, but I just don't see, I think it just demands a bit too much relative to what I'm getting out of that. I'm not entirely sure that playing Book of Hours sort of resolves that, but yeah, I don't know. I can see it going both ways if I'm completely honest. Obviously, I hope you really enjoy it. The other thing that I can say too is that Book of Hours uses the same sort of engine that Weather Factory's made. And I'm not just talking about the fact that they both use Unity. I mean, there is a specific way in which these games are structured. And certainly this game is harder to... I'd say it's fair to say that this game is sort of harder to... harder to mod. There's quite a bit going on in here that is maybe more complicated than Cultist Simulator. But I think just kind of having a low pressure environment in which you kind of learn how the card interactions go may sort of give you enough to say, okay, I kind of think this is what they were trying to tell me in Cultist Simulator. And then you kind of go a bit further. Well, I mean, see, this is a hard one for me, right? Because I get why people say that, but I also I didn't start off with a knowledge of these games in advance, right? I mean, I played the game when it was in beta and they didn't have any of the helpers inside of it. So not only did I learn the game, but I learned the game without the breadcrumbs that they put in place for people. Now, obviously, there's some stuff that I learned better after release and that there were new things in there. But I've always found it very hard to speak in absolute terms to say that Cultist Simulator does not give room to explore or learn, because my own experience of it is that it actually gives you the play. Now, I mean, I think there may be a question in terms of how willing someone is to accept a loss, right? A little bit if I'll play Cobalt Core or whatever, I may not succeed on every run, but there's a bit more that I'm getting each time I go through it. And I think that's kind of standard for roguelikes. But, again, I don't want to deny people their feelings. It's just, I think that dividing line is more about taste than it is about what the game does or doesn't permit. Yes, I mean, this is the challenge, right? Is that if you don't like repeating stuff, I'm not entirely sure that Book of Hours is going to let you... I wish it were otherwise, but I'm not really sure what Book of Hours offers that... I think you're still going to get frustrated if you die in the game. So I don't know if that's quite enough to push it over the edge. I mean, I'd encourage you to try, because you never know where your new favorite's going to come from. But But yeah, that it is a challenge to, if essentially, I don't think Cultist Simulator ultimately can work for people don't want who don't want to have to start over. And that's just partly because some of the legacies actually get unlocked. Or not unlocked, but like basically you're guaranteed certain legacies if you die. So the usual progression, I think, for players is everybody starts with the aspirant, and then they move into the bright young thing, which gets past the constraints on wealth, at least at the start, but it gives you a harder start in terms of the occult. I mean, it gives you some, right? But you sort of rely on what you learned in the aspirant playthrough to make a bit of progress in the bright young thing. There's a specific way that I think a lot of bright young thing and encounters end, but it's always kind of better for people to find that on their own. And I think the physician's probably the most likely for people to get a first win with, and that's just because that gives a relatively comfortable. It gives you a relatively comfortable start. You've got a job that you can't really lose that pays you well, and the struggle is with the occult. But essentially, you've had 2 sessions with the occult to learn that, and so. Well, it's not impossible to lose. It's one where you sort of have gotten enough of the basics down that you have a fighting chance to sort of see it through to the end, or at the very least, the challenges that you run into, you can focus on the one that you haven't figured out yet, so that you can you can deal with it in time. The Crossing to Noon. The mystic Garcia Sowry gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time, the Blackbone pondered her next move, until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his third sestina. But the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide. Garcia Sowry acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and her twin infant granddaughters, without ever making such a journey. But he adds contemptuously, it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a Mansus prank. Deaths and Their Evasions. Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansus. No long names hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fusine, for, he says, a special secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that can sometimes be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints at the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh. Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book that speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of the Covenant Stone of the Watchman's Tree. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the Edicts Liminal. And finally, the collected Hush House lectures. In the 1800s, Dr. Aaron Peel was invited to give a series of lectures to the Curia. They combine his pithy view of the histories with his particular brand of unhelpfully ironical insight. 1776, the third history. Louis declares the Mask of Masks and forbids mention of the great writhing within the walls of the Palace of Versailles, although by this point the worms are observed to move openly along the boulevards of Paris, sometimes even in daylight. The army is redeployed to defend the court. The mask lasts 1 lunar month and attracts several of the long abroad in Western Europe at the time, fleeing the worms or hoping to take advantage of the desperate Louis, or seeking access to the sealed mirrors of the palace, or just eager to attend the most inventive and desperate debauch of the century. Many know espouse wormish sympathies. Let 100 histories flourish, tear down the tyranny of eternity. To grow long is usually to cast off these sympathies. There would be no immortality without eternity, and eternity, we often seem to decide, is tyranny as long as we are not eternal. Sorry, I stumbled over that. Okay, putrefactions and calcinations. That's the last of the lessons that I'm going to be able to get for today. At last, I approach mastery. Improve the skill to level 8. So in 30 seconds, what I'll do is I'll start looking at the items on the wall again. Again, a couple of these are ones that we've already looked at before. But like I said, I kind of want to go through the different parts of the house in a different direction to have something to do while we wait for the next bit. I may just take a small break. Actually, yeah. I'm going to step away for a quick minute. I won't run ads or anything like that, but I do actually need to get one other thing handled really quickly. So I will be back in just a moment, but I'm going to put up the break sign just so I can run away. I'll try and keep it, less than 5 minutes, hopefully shorter. I will see you all in just a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. So, let's start investigating. Cudgels, Digdu, and St. Trog. Investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing this. Very old iron cudgels, recently and heavily padded, retrieved from Gladwin Lake and returned to the cell's occupants as a reward for good behavior. Wasters, Darling Deer, and Father Turk. Wooden swords of recent manufacture, never used. provided to the occupants of the cell who clearly disdained and never used them. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon, so we'll save the investigation for tomorrow. Treasured items left behind by the occupants of the cell during their inglorious career on the high seas, procured by governor callers as a gift for the occupants of the cell in hope that would induce better behavior. Alice licit, tibi non licit. To us it is permitted, to you it is not permitted, the motto of the Suppression Bureau. The story goes that Governor Collars used to keep another sign in his office with the motto of the Nocturnal Branch, the Bureau's predecessor, Radix Malorum Libertas Est. If someone complained about Bureau policies, he would point to the sign to remind them that things could be worse. Eventually, it was pointed out to him that the root of all evils is liberty was an undiplomatic motto to display in a prison, and he grumpily retired the sign. Julian Cosley. Julian is known to be winter-long. At the prescribed date, his hour patron will ensure him a beautiful ending. But until then, he is even harder than most long to dispose of fully. That said, he is known to have been defeated by an ascendant long in the 1920s, and his true current status, a diminished survivor, a determined memory, something else, is the subject of esoteric debate. Cosley spent time at Hush House in the 17th century, but this painting, though undated, is clearly much more recent. It is also signed by Cosley himself, a gift to an imprisoned admirer. Prison stool, a cheerful lavender color, possibly to encourage rehabilitative enthusiasm. Someone has scratched a series of tally marks down one leg, 77 days. A severe chair. Unfussy marsh green upholstery. This chair is innocent of chairly secrets. Nope, I definitely don't want to dissect the leaf. A staff armchair, polished by the posteriors of dozens of loafing prison guards. For a great many years, this chair sat below a dartboard. The leather is pocked with the marks of occasional misses, or just possibly assassination attempts. So these are fixed in place, so I can't work with those. But tomorrow, we can start on the kitchen. Again, I'm focusing my attention on the stuff that is reusable, rather than anything that I'm going to... anything that I'm going to consume by looking at. So the kitchen bowls, cake time. It is not yet time for cake. Okay, I don't think I have anything to interact with. I mean, there's the... I guess there's the newspaper, so I can handle that. Yellowing newspaper, it's dated the year that Hush House was abandoned. Nothing is history when it first happens. Again, I think the rest of these are all consumables. So, lacquered bone chess set, born of battles. The White King and the Black King are... Sorry, the White Queen and the Black King are both scowling, but the Black Queen and the White King are both grinning delightedly. The Spartan chair. The cushion has been removed, perhaps as an act of petty revenge. Hard librarians value hard chairs. Mop and bucket, galvanized steel, enriched with the stains of a dozen years of methodical mopping. Very, very, very faintly, even after all these years, the unmistakable yeasty, marshy odor of prophet slime. Okay. Actually made good time through the Cucurbit prison. Comfortable garden chair. Amateurly varnished, characterfully stained. Shadows shift, sunbars follow. Snug chair, a wicker chair with a soft white lap blanket for chilly evenings. Is the blanket bearskin? Polar bear? It might be, but it's softer than one might expect. All right. So again, this is mostly for curiosity rather than any specific purpose, but we will be on to spring now. So we're just going to wait for the event before we do anything. The yearly stipend. The yearly stipend from St. Ronwin's has arrived, along with the usual rather sniffy reminder that I should spend it wisely. Alright, the affair of the developments in the world beyond Brandkrug. Is there someone en route to Hush House? Alright, Mademoiselle Margot Matutine. Socialite, yachtswoman, and, under the name Morgan, an Alukite, a Legion. The former means, among other things, that she eats people. The latter means, among other things, that she is not to be taken lightly. The Affair of Apollo and Marsyas, an upcoming production of an opera with a very ancient pedigree indeed. So, what I'm going to want to do now that we know what the affair is, so there's two things that I'm going to want. Number one, I'm going to want to invite everybody with Grail and Sky. So I'll wind up writing a whole bunch of invitations for that, as well as just kind of essentially trying to get every single character that could potentially do this incident on the same day, or at the very least inside the same season. Then the other thing that I want to try and do is get the salon done. Now I have a pretty clear list of, I don't know, I think my guest list is pretty well established at this point, at least until we start exhausting all of the different interactions. But for now, we're going to focus on Margot. Perhaps I should call myself Sapphire, right? On Apollo and Marsyas. I wish to attend the premiere of an opera, one I have always very much enjoyed. Try a book with as much Mystery Grail or Mystery Sky as their matching interest. So I'm curious if there are different responses for either. Persons of some interest to me will attend also. It is important that I be seen at my best. I am looking for a very particular inspiration. Try a book with as much Grail or Sky as their matching interest. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just try... So, choice and rare. Oh, I had hoped for this exactly. Thank you, my librarian. Or... This was not what I had expected, but if it had, it would not be inspiration, no? Thank you, my librarian. All right, I like a reaction to the Grail, so... Choice and rare. Oh, I had hoped for this exactly. Thank you, my librarian. So, while we are doing that. Oh, thank you, Cree. That's embarrassing how long that was up there for. Yeah, no, it's all good. It's something I should be on top of, but I wasn't expecting to sort of have to, um, but yeah, no, again, it's one of these things that I forget. It's something I need to be on top of, but I always appreciate it when it's brought up. But yeah, so the thing that I'm going to focus on right now is just corralling everybody who's got a nectar and sky interest. In fact, I'm going to also erase my to-do list. I think it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to satisfy all of the interests today, but I can at the very least come up with my list. So Corso has a Grail interest, so we already have one for him. Gonna move that down here. Yvette is Moon and Winter. Zachary is Knock and Winter. Erin is Moon and Moth. Douglas Lantern and Heart. Margot is Grail and Sky. Of course, we're already helping her with that. Peel is Moon and Moth. Schaller, Heart and Nectar. Aladim, Rose and Scale. Agdistis is Heart and Sky. Zeta is Edge and Sky. Lalakaima is Edge and Rose. Arthur's Edge and Lantern. Coquille is Grail and Knock. I'm going to have to write an invitation for Coquille, but we can do that right now. The worst for me is apparently one of the videos on YouTube, the mic cut out halfway through, and so the thing is that I already get distracted, and very often, like when it seems like I sort of lose my train of thought, or that I get distracted during a video, very often it's because I'm looking over to my OBS settings just to try and make sure that everything's the way that it should be. And of course, doing that makes it very easy to sort of lose the train of thought, and it becomes unnatural. But so it's one of these things where, like, I think it's still good to do. It's good to kind of keep a look at the levels, especially as a smaller streamer, because like I can remember times when I've tried to host someone and it's very clearly they don't know that their stream isn't working. Although the ones that do bug me sometimes are the people who are like, yeah, no, I don't interact with people. I'm just streaming. Is like, okay, maybe I should be more choosy on who I host, but yeah, it's tough, right? So in order to not be as distracted, I try to focus, but the cost always is that there's like an embarrassing moment where, you know, I don't know, I jostle my cable or something happens to get in the way of the mic, and especially for the VODs, like those are ones that I can't fix, right? Those are something that I only discover like a week after the fact. So yeah, no, I understand it. And of course, the other drawback is that as somebody who broadcasts without a camera, I also have the risk that like there's no obvious sign that I would be talking. So, but if you figure out the secret, let me know. Okay, so it was Coquille for Grail. Dagmar is Knock and Rose. Eason is Heart and Sky, so... got him. Fraser's Lantern and Scale. Hokabald is Grail and Forge. I wasn't expecting Hokabald, but we will definitely bring him in. I guess I need to do that later, though. Olympi is Moth and Forge, and Serena is Lantern Forge. So there's actually quite a few more, of course, but I have a feeling that you're the one who's probably a better broadcaster and knows a little bit. You're a little more on the ball than I am, so. Okay, so what I'll do just in prep, I don't think it would hurt to make another Orpiment Exultant. Transform the essence into the Incastum Terminale Orpiment Exultant. So the other thing I'm going to do here, I'll actually also bring up some water just so we can maybe make some more. And then I'm also going to work at the Sweet Bones for a little bit so that I can earn some postage stamp money. So nope, not entirely clear yet if I'm going to be able to make it through every person who's invited, but I think it's worth a shot because we can always put them up in one of the guest beds if I feel like we're running short. Now I just need to post it. I don't think it matters which desk I do it at. I just need the ink. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Hokabald to Brandkrug. Did I forget to... Okay, I'll maybe just take a quick second here to double check that I've got the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So either I've miscounted the exact same number twice, or I have everybody who, again, I'm talking about potential candidates, so it may just be, I don't know if everybody who has the aspect necessarily, I don't know if they necessarily have to engage with the event, but and this time we're really focused on earning money, so we'll just keep plowing the whist in. Okay, so Madame Matutine was confident that she would be the best dressed woman in the audience. Signor Corso Reverte, manuscript hunter, legacy scavenger, mercenary. Many would question his ethics, few would deny his acuteness. I don't need an appointment, do I? No, I'm not going to the performance. It's not bad, I suppose, but I mean, you can hum the overture, but it's not exactly Mozart, if you know what I mean. No, I'm on a mission. Someone is going, but he's not really an opera aficionado either. We're more interested in catering. He's bringing a recipe book with him, a sort of recipe book, Carapace Savor Arts. I've been asked to acquire it, but I'm no good with Carapace languages, so here I am, ready to read up on stains. Thanks, librarian. I'll know what to look for now. Keep this between us, will you? I hope I can just buy the book, but its owner's reputation is, he's not always cooperative, you know? Okay, we've got Peter Ecdistis, Zita Bukhara, Kokil Amarajibi, Isan Thekri, and Hokabald of Posend. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. So we'll pour this out to... Okay. So this, what I'm doing here is really just trying to get a bit of replacement for the Orpiment Exultant that I just used. This is almost certainly overkill, but I figure it'd be nice to try and recover a little bit. I think Anbury and Lapidary may... Actually, that may give me Orichalcum. Let's see. Oh, nope. Iotic Essence. This is an Incastum Terminale, one of the great inks. Use it with your journal to record a history and fulfill your reason for coming to Hush House, if you so choose. Orpiment Exultant, the Incastum Terminale of the Fourth History. It's the incandescent orange of Forge. One ingredient, as it were long rumored, is the blood of candescence. Certain Masonic and related traditions venerate what they call OE. Use an Incastum ink with your journal to make determinations and record histories. If the hours listen, the world changes. Corso improved his knowledge of stains, hopefully enough to identify the Savor Arts book he hoped to acquire in Paris. Peter Ecdistis, musician, mystic, impresario. Ecdistis was a dancer once. One cannot see him without knowing it. The wound in his thigh keeps him from the stage, but his every movement still has the cadence of a prayer. How do you do, librarian? I crave your assistance. Apollo and Marsyas. The score had been thought lost, and I am pleased to say I played my small part in its recovery. It is rather old. I have been asked to help arrange it to suit contemporary expectations. Okay, 7 Faces of Icarus ought to do the trick. This work is very special to me, librarian. Very special also to the hour I serve. I want to be certain that the work is worthy of him, and that I do not disgrace the orchestra nor disappoint the audience. That always. I knew that I would not regret coming here, and not only for the knowledge you have shared. I could grow to love this place, librarian, even at its grayest. Perhaps I'm coming to understand why you have set aside the world and made Brandkrug your home. Okay, with Keeper Level Forge, Iotic Essence is the precursor to the great ink called Orpiment Exultant. With Keeper Level Lantern, it can become Xanthotic Essence instead. So again, I always feel a little self-conscious about these points because I feel I'm playing quite mechanically at this point, but I will do a recap of all of the encounters before we finish off. So, Mr. Ecdistus helped arrange the score for Apollo and Marsyas. Azita Bukhara. Now this is one that's going to... No, sorry, was it Azita? I thought one of these people had a Grail interest as well. Anyways. Hello, librarian. I have questions. I'll pay for answers. They're putting on a certain opera in Paris. A dear old enemy of mine is very fond of the opera, and I hope he might attend. I need to make sure the production gets all the details just right, that it's tempting as bait for my adversary. Just so, Murad will love this. Thank you. So at this point, I don't actually see any problem in just sort of working through the night with these characters. I'm a little worried about the time that it will take. We may just hit the edge of what Hokabald's willing to endure. But Kokil Amarajibi, artist, socialite, burglar, an unspeakably charming woman with a particular knack for getting adopted. Darling, hello, I have the teensiest favor to ask. Apollo and Marsyas, horrid story, always puts me in mind of the most aggravating uncle. Try a book with as much Grail mystery as their interest. Yeah, so it is a minute for... Oh no, we'll have just enough time for everyone involved. It's certain to be quite the most crushing bore, but if I happen to go, I have some rather vivid ideas for my look. I just need to, you know, flesh them out. Smudgy little line between ghastly and thrilling, darling, isn't there? But I rather think this is on the right side of the line. So I probably could have gone preparing some of the dishes for the salon, but at this point, I'm happy to focus on the guests, especially because we'll probably wrap up at this point. So Azita wanted to ensure that the production got every detail right to make it the best possible bait for her dearest enemy, Murad. And Kokil, Princess Kokil, was confident that she would be the best-dressed woman in the audience. It's good to be back. Thank you for seeing me. Mr. Isan Fekri. Formerly, Isan was a healer. He was not human. He was Secretary Salvant of Hush House, but not all at the same time. Fussy, kind, famously foul to look upon. Apollo and Marsyas is to be performed again in Paris. It is a great work, librarian, in more than one sense. Law's touch is lighter than we know. When we invoke the Thunderskin, there can be unexpected consequences in the kingdoms of the lower skies. I am reassured. Perhaps, after all, no storm will stir. Perhaps everyone will just have a good night out. It surely must happen sooner or later. I want to make sure we don't lose Magister Hokabald, because he's the most expensive to bring back. And interestingly enough, everybody so far has interacted with the event. So, what Isan learned at Hush House convinced him that the production would not trouble the lower skies, especially, perhaps, with his intercession. Magister Hokabald, metallurgist, gourmet, corrupted immortal, and supposedly a long ago king's byblow. What a grim and chilly little country. I hope you've prepared a suitable welcome. There will be a production in Paris of an opera that celebrates the Grail. I have decided to offer suitable gifts to the performers. I would like to determine which gifts will be most in keeping with the opera's subject matter. Try a book with as much mystery Grail as their Grail interest. Delicious. I can be certain now of a generous and memorable feast. You might yet prove more useful than your predecessors. Okay, so I know I'm gonna need the water for the next salon, so we'll draw another one of those up. like I said, I'm going to wrap it up here, I think, but the least I can do is sort of prep the salon, particularly if I'm going to be ordering in some ingredients. And I think very likely I'm going to need something for Douglas. So before I go too much further, let's just see what we have in stock. So we've got pickled mushrooms. So that seems like a viable option. Let's do this in the Hall of Division. So that covers Aaron. Or actually Aaron or Schaller. And I have a slight prejudice towards like taking stuff that's in some of the weird spots. So what I mean by that is like we used to have, actually we have a few items up here, but like basically I used to have a bunch of stuff down in the sort of the Hall of Whispers and such. So where I can, I'd sort of like to consolidate. So ham and egg casserole, for instance, that gives me some heart. We'll maybe see if there are other alternatives. Yeah, so the vegetable pie, that's a heart. We have the dripping for game chips, so no real worry there. In fact, I can get the potatoes now. These are potatoes. Spectacular. All right. I actually do have one batch of almonds left over. But do I have the sugar is the question. So yeah, almonds are definitely on the list. Okay, so we've got the lantern, the moon, the heart, the knock. So I guess it's just Grail, and I seem to remember we put some fudge aside, so... Alright. That gets me started. I think I might do 5 or 6 almonds. I'll just write it and kill a simi, why not? Oops. Right, that's the almonds taken care of. There's my potatoes. So we have more than one. This isn't the YouTube playthrough, so we have more than one kitchen available to us. So this one, we already have the dripping set aside, so that's just a matter of the right hardware. I do feel I'm making a little bit more for this salon than I should, but we kind of covered the basics, so I'm happy enough. Okay, so while I'm doing an order, so if I I'm not mistaken, I don't think we actually have any beef or pheasant, so now would not be a bad time to reorder that. So I think 2 beef, 2 pheasant would be enough. Essentially, that gets me enough to kind of cover any instances where I find myself sort of caught flat-footed. I suppose the real question now is, having done all of that, I definitely have the option of buying some of the drinks, but I think out of the rest of this, like we've already got plums. I think I'm good with what we've got here. So big order, but provide money equal to the cost. The postmistress will make out the postal order. Complete the order. And we'll toss some whist at that to get up to date. Okay. So we've got the jump. Let me just double check what I had here again. So we've got Moon, Heart, Grail, Lantern. And the knock is on its way. Okay, so I'll just need to serve the drinks. I did, I don't know if you got to see it before, Lord Gloom, but the, there was one that I did which was entirely around as many sort of pheasant dishes and related game sides. So like I did the game chips, the jugged pheasant, grape and cold grape and pheasant salad. It was a neat one. Like it's kind of neat to come up with different ways of theming the dinners. Although this one, it's really more about like just working through all my like massive pile of leftovers. But okay, that's the last one. So I'm going against my better judgment to try and collect all of these. Hooray, it worked. Right. 8 golden spintria. So, just a reminder, The Affair of Apollo and Marsyas, an upcoming production of an opera with a very ancient pedigree indeed. We had Morgan. Madame Matutine was confident she would be the best-dressed woman in the audience. Corso improved his knowledge of stains, hopefully enough to identify the Savor Arts book he hoped to acquire in Paris. Mr. Igdistis helped arrange the score for Apollo and Marsyas. Azita wanted to ensure that the production got every detail right to make it the best possible bait for her dearest enemy, Murad. Princess Coquille was confident that she would be the best-dressed woman in the audience. What Eason learnt at Hush House convinced him that the production would not trouble the lower skies, especially, perhaps, with his intercession. Now, one thing I'll say, because of the rivalry between these two as far as best dressed, I am a bit concerned that we're going to see a repeat of the encounter here. But what Eason learned at Hush House convinced him that the production would not trouble the lower skies, especially perhaps with his intercession. And Hokebald, after visiting Hush House, Magister Hokebald believed he had determined the most suitable gifts for the performers. He almost thanked me for it. Okay. So, I think what I'll do is I'll wrap up the cooking that I do, but I'm going to leave it at that. We'll take care of the drinks in tomorrow's episode. The postmistress signs and seals the order, places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. So the plums here are sort of what I was talking about when I say that we don't need to do an order like that. I've got more than enough to take care of my my immediate needs. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Now this is, again, I'm kind of getting back to the point where I'm hoarding water, but this is specifically because I know I'm going to pour some out for the salon. And finally, the game chips. A dish with edge, ford, heart, and knock. I guess I can space this out a little bit. So there's actually a couple. So drinking cocoa I can already put in here. That'll cover the Grail. Maybe the Dawn Lion. I did get some Caterin Hero second flush of sound. Or actually, yeah, I think maybe the Caterin Hero might be better for me to boil. Possibly even to order some more. But I'll save that for later. Still have quite a few items up here. Start moving more of it onto the table, I suppose. But yeah, so I need to, I know for, I think for Aaron and Schaller, I can give them both glasses of water. Douglas will need a lantern. So usually I like to do the Caterin Hero second flush of Sam because Douglas can use that as well as Daymare. So basically I brew a pot and that takes care of 2 of the visitors. So again, we'll bring them over. This is, at this point, I'm not so much using it for the lessons as I am using it to find out more about what's happening with the characters. But obviously it's, you know, it's interesting to be able to level up the skills as high as I have. It definitely makes it easy to make stuff. But this is kind of how the playthrough is going to go. So because we've found that we're able to sort of get an event done per season, I have I don't know, I have some ideas in terms of the way that I can get the last people that I need for the Lighthouse Institute. I think by my count I had 2 positions that I needed to fill. And of course, some of this will also depend on what event comes up, because not necessarily, like, not every figure gets involved in every last one. But again, we'll keep optimistic, and if nothing else, it's just a chance for me to actually learn a little bit more about some of the different events, because I don't know if I ever finished the affair of Apollo and Marsyas in the beta, but all of that will be handled in the future. Now, I'll just say, because I've got the I have a couple of ideas in terms of my upcoming demands on my time. I know next week there's going to be the local game dev meetup. However, it is possible I'm actually going to need to go out of town for work sometime this month. We'll see. There's nothing guaranteed yet, but somebody just told me that today, so I want to be prepared. So that may mean that there is an interruption in the in sort of the second half of the month. We're in the second half of the month. So I do apologize for that. Obviously, I did say that I wasn't expecting anything to get in the way except for the normal normal events like the local meetup. But obviously, I commit as soon as I know what's going on. I will let you know what's going on. But I do expect that we will have a conclusion for the House of Light content fairly soon. So, thank you, Jamie. Let's see who is online before I wrap up for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will be back for Friday for some more Book of Hours, and then so Friday and Monday I would still expect broadcasts, but it's next Wednesday that I'll be off. And then I will figure out what the rest of the schedule looks like based on that. There's not a lot of people online, actually, that I know, but I do see that Will Shand is currently streaming his games and demos. So I feel like he is a good one to host. Very different stream from me, but certainly an enjoyable fellow. Someone I've actually known for a while. I knew him in Vancouver. And amusingly enough, he actually did not know that I'd moved to Ottawa for such a long time. So, but anyways, he definitely does some really interesting games. Definitely has an interesting perspective. So I will leave you all in his capable hands, And I will see you all on Friday. Until then, take care. Thanks for watching.
Set to